Welcome, everyone. My guest today is Lead Analyst Logan Mohtashami to talk about the idea that Wall Street investors have bought a huge number of homes in the last few years. We'll also talk about new home sales and how they relate to lower mortgage rates. Logan, welcome back to the podcast.
It is wonderful to be here, Sarah. By the way, guess what I'm doing again on social media?
Oh, you are challenging people to debates.
No. That always happens. But this time we had another politician from the Democrat side that said, hedge funds are buying up all the homes. They're the reason why home prices are so out of control. I've got a rule that stops that. So I thought about this because the timing was perfect, because a few days ago, somebody asked me, said, you're such a liar. You're such a shill for Blackstone. They've been buying, 30, 40% of all the homes, spending trillions of dollars. I say, homie, you're on crack. Get the hell away from me. They don't even have that kind of capital. They don't even have that kind of manpower to buy that many homes. So I thought, what is the most simplest chart that someone could understand? So there's a pie chart, which I'm never really a big fan of pie charts anyway, but there's a pie chart that shows 110 million single family homes out there. This is single family. I'm not even counting the multifamily units. And Blackstone owns 0.05% of them. So the pie chart is it's so small, you have to actually squint. And I said, this is your reason for housing inflation post World War II. Get that garbage out of here. So Amy Klobuchar actually did something on Twitter recently talking about, I'm going to have a rule to stop this. So the irony of this, and for everybody that wants to use this tactical debate, if somebody brings this up again, you say, okay, so we all want to stop housing inflation, right? Okay, so if you are kicking a renter family out, and that family then has to go find another a landlord to rent from, in a sense, that activity is inflationary, because you're taking the supply of a rental unit, which rental vacancies aren't that high anyway, and we want to fight inflation. What's the best way to fight inflation? Supply. So you're kicking out people and forcing them into a lower supply channel. For then what? What's the benefit for them, right? So it's, in a sense, it's inflationary in that aspect, because you have to kick someone out, then you have to force them to go rent from a landlord that's a mom and pop, which doesn't have the kind of the capital as maybe a hedge fund does. There you go. And it's getting so absurd right now about this thing. So we wrote that article last December when people thought 44% of the homes. Man, even the Russian trolls don't do this. And I've dealt with the Russian trolls for years. They're not this stupid. Republican, Democrats, TikTok, stop this craziness. It is not the majority of buyers. It's never been. The mom and pop investors are. You can't do the class warfare act on mom and pop investors, can you? Oh boy, Uncle Dave. I would say Uncle Dave. Uncle Dave is an investor. He's got 3 homes. The villain. It's him. It's not regulation or land zoning or anything. It's them. So I had fun this week.
Oh, I know you did. And you got 150,000 views on that pie chart too, on that.
Yeah. And then it's funny because people then unchart people try to do a chart war with me. You want to talk about a suicide squad? It's that. You want to talk about a suicide, because I'm all about tactical debating, and I just need people to talk and to tweet. Because the whole thing is to absolutely eviscerate you in front of as many people as possible, because I could clearly see you don't know the data. And it always goes back to, why don't you go after mom and pop investors? They're the evil. Oh, wait a second. It doesn't run well. Oh, wait a second. What? So it's just one of these things. It's a cheap class war tactic. The right and the left does it. And I would say that the Russian trolls kind of gave up on this already because the numbers are so bad. But if you, as an educated person, as a member of Congress, are saying they're the majority of buyers, they're the reasons.
So something I've heard on this, Logan, is that they have all these straw buyers. So they don't show up because they've got all these fronts that they're buying.
It is 100% irrelevant, because people use the 1,000 home property owners. So mom and pop investors, the 1 to 9, are the scale owners. Again, reading is a good thing. It's literally in the data. It's those that own the 1 to 9. You want to do any straw man stuff you want, it does not matter. It's mom and pop investors. If you want to go on public and say, Jimmy, my neighbor, he's a he's the one that's doing this. It's because of him home prices have gone up. Doesn't work. I'm ready to destroy every single person on planet Earth on this, because oddly enough, for me, it was like the exact opposite I used to fight on this for. People used to tell me home sales could never crash because Wall Street will buy it. No, they won't. They're not the biggest buyers, mortgage buyers. So if you're not blaming the millennials for this, then this is a disingenuous argument, because they've been the biggest buyers for years, right? They're the ones that are not even giving you a supply. For God, these heathens, these children are heathens. They don't even give you a home when they buy something. Evil kids. So that's how you debate it. You make the people sound silly and ridiculous, right? So you have fanatical left-wing and right-wing people on this debate. It's a simple math thing, right? They are not the big buyers up here.
So what charts or what data are they looking at and interpreting wrongly?
They know they're full of it, Sarah. That's it.
I don't think
they assume. Oh, no. Politicians are full of every single second of their lives. Come on. I mean, think about it. It is classic war. When we talk about political economic theory, it is to deceive as many people as you want to get votes. So what do we need in that? We need a villain. So class warfare, oh my God, a villain. Them. But they're the smallest buyer. It doesn't matter. As soon as we say Blackstone, and the best part is, like, as soon as we say BlackRock, and they're like, ma'am, I don't think BlackRock is the right company. It sounds the same. No, ma'am, it's a different company. They don't even own homes. Literally, BlackRock had to actually take out an ad and say, we are not Blackstone. Stop sending us. This is like one of the most crazy things I've seen. And it's just like morphed in the last 6 months to like another form of Crazyville. So no, BlackRock is not Blackstone. Blackstone doesn't own majority of the homes. They were never a big buyer. Even if you had the iBuyers, the true villains are the millennials, because those rotten kids, those snoopy kids that solve all the mysteries, they actually don't even provide you a house when they buy a house. Oh my God. Oh, evil children of the corn. They're the reasons. So Sarah Wheeler, you find me a way to get on TV and on Republicans and Democrats and crazy people on TikTok, I will light every single one of them up and say that, dear Lord, a child, a second grader who's not even very good at school could figure this out. And you adults are out here talking about this. Come on now. So I had a fun week.
This is going to air on Monday, which is Memorial Day. This just seems like the right kind of rant for that, Like, why go after part of America, try to turn us towards against each other with class warfare? But I think it is it's a way of framing it that makes people feel better, right? Because so many of the other things are kind of out of our control.
I admire the fact that you still like politics.
I do.
But it is the devil's pits of hell. And I always tell people, I try to take all human emotion after all the economic data. So people say you're very pro-America. Okay, you got me on that one. In any case, but when you put political economic theory into the votes, the smartest people I've seen in the world become dumb very quickly, right? Because the ideological sense takes over what the narrative is. The narrative is you have to do enough to win, right? You have to win. It's basically, in a sense, a politician is kind of almost a walking prostitute of votes and money. That's what the game is. So you are allowed to lie all the time to get the generated votes. That's the winning game. My God, if you actually said the truth, you couldn't win. You couldn't do it right now. You couldn't actually say the truth. So, and oddly enough, whoever is in power, the opposite power, the world sucks. And then when that person is in power, the world's, except I would say this, Democrats, even when they're in power, they can't actually say that things are good. It's just the inherent nature of them. And Republicans lie all the time, but at least when they're in power, the world, America's great. So whatever it is, it's not an efficient way of discussing economics, right? Because if America was this horrible, crazy place that everybody says, then we would have people leaving to Mexico and Canada or Norway or Sweden. And I say, please go. Please go. We could get millions of people to replace you in a second. And they don't leave because they will live in this country. They will die in this country. Their children will bury them in this country because they don't believe this stuff. Because if they did, they'd be gone. We are the only superpower in the house. This world, only us. We are King Kong, Godzilla combined out there. So that's why people want to come in and not leave. All those people, I'm going to burn my passport and go to Canada. I was like, maybe 7 people did. So no, all left, right politics.
I know politics is not your thing. I totally understand why. But I guess from my perspective, like, you debunked the 44% back when people were saying that, which was a crazy stat. And it was because they were looking at the data wrong.
No, they know it's wrong. There is no way. It's funny. I actually had a TikTok person basically kind of tell me that. Oh, I know it's wrong, but this thing sells, man. It's great.
It does sell. No, it does sell.
No, it does. It does. Literally, we had millions of people. We had millions of people believe 44% of homes were bought in 2023. 2023 didn't even end. The year wasn't even over. I'm like, where are you coming up? That's like $1.4 trillion. Like, the firm's market capitals are not, the money they manage isn't even that. It's like, so it's this, you can't, that's a world that I cannot operate in, but I can destroy. Right. So the righteous go after the villains of lies and false prophets. But this one, it took a crazy turn in the last 6-7 months.
No, actually, I heard it at MBA secondary from people who should know better, not from MBA people, but from some of the people on stage. So I think it's a widespread.
No. There's like people on the internet that are well-known housing people. It's like, oh my God, they're buying all the homes. It's funny because they use like the billions terms of like through trillions of dollars in real estate, and they make it sound like it's big. So we always keep it simple. Look at the percentage of buyers. An educated person reads. A fanatic doesn't read, right? This is not the dark ages. It literally never even got above 2.4% on a quarter. Right? Even if you weren't a smart person, you would realize that there's nothing in the history of economics that says 2.4% is the majority of buyers. And that was the peak buying. It was like 3 quarters, and that was it. Right? An educated person knows this, an uneducated or a fanatic. So you're either uneducated or a fanatic. If you're a fanatic, you start building this Mickey Mouse stuff. So our job is to absolutely eviscerate these people in front of as many people as possible out there. So then they go, you don't know how to do math. And as long as they accept that fact, we win, because that's how it's done since the Peloponnesian War.
And have you been around since the Peloponnesian War?
In many different forms.
Somehow, yes. Okay. Also, I cannot let your that whole line of thought go without appreciating that you said children of the corn. That movie terrified me when I was growing up. So, appreciate that you brought that in.
Really? You know what? I've never seen it.
Gosh, no, it's super. I mean, now to this day, when I pass a cornfield, it freaks me out. And I lived in Kansas for a while, so there was a lot of cornfields.
There are a lot of cornfields. Okay.
There are a lot of cornfields.
Well, there you go. So I know what to be for Halloween next time.
Children of the corn, scare me, yeah. Okay, well, we have other things to talk about, although I think that is a very worthy topic because, to your point, there's lots of misinformation out there about it. So glad for you to shed some light on that. But we also want to talk about new home sales.
Yes, and I think this goes into 2 different forms of conversation. Okay, so housing leads the cycle in or out. Construction workers, leads the cycle kind of into the recession and out. That usually leads to jobless claims rising. So right now we have something that we haven't had before. We've had single family permits fall with multifamily permits falling together now. Okay, so we're in a very unique historical economic cycle where new home sales are not really elevated in any big form. They're elevated from the lows, I would say, from the Great Recession, but they're not exploding higher. It's like the last print was in the 600,000 range. But if single family permits and multifamily permits are both heading lower, when the backlog of homes are done, then there's not enough work in the pipeline, and whatever staff you have to let go at that point. Now, the multifamily permits are at the COVID-19 recession lows, so that's already done. But the thing is, we've had this backlog, and it takes 21 months to close a 5-unit project. If going out in the future, If the single family permit starts to go lower, and if the new home sales starts to go lower, that's the debate, because the big builders are still paying down rates and they're making stuff work. So it has kept labor going on. But if you have permits falling for single family, falling for multifamily, and then the remodeling workers start to fade, then you start to lose construction jobs. This is why we want to keep an eye on this, because remember, I'm not a lower rate, stay lower person or a Fed. By the way, the Fed not pivoting because of the labor market. Oh, Sarah, we got tons of great statements by the Fed this week. Waller is like, oh, wage growth is too high. They go, no, Logan, the Fed doesn't attack wages. Waller, wage growth is too high. We have to kick that down. Okay, then at least don't talk to me anymore. The labor market breaking, Bostic. Well, the labor market is resilient. That's why we're going to stay restrictive. Okay, so you're basically saying once the labor market starts to break, voila, here we go. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Oh, we didn't get ahead of the curve. Oh no, I have to cut rates. And remember, the reason I say this is because if I followed the Fed for many years, it looks like to me they had forecasted and believed we would have a recession in 2023. And then when we didn't and the growth rate of inflation fell, they kind of panicked right there as well. So they fully intended to stay as restrictive as possible based on their own models until the labor market breaks. And then they have cover. Then they go, oh, by the way, our dual mandate is, employment, and now jobs are being lost. We have to be more. They feel much more comfortable when the labor market is breaking. So they can cut 3 times and still technically be very restrictive in their own policies. They choose not to. And this is my whole the Fed won't pivot thing since 2022. I've got to get people to believe me. And here's great examples this last week by Bostic and Waller. So regarding construction workers, we keep an eye on this now because right now it's funny. We have more total housing units available for sale, new homes, than what we had pre-COVID. It's 98,000. 98,000. Literally 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I want everyone to remember this one. 2 weeks of new listings data in the existing home sales market overrides the new home sales sector. This is as simple as math as you can get. The new home sales sector is not an avenue for a massive amount of unoccupied homes ready for sale. It never has been. Not even the Great Recession, the housing bubble crash, never even got to 200,000. Most inventory comes from the existing home sales market. That's why we really focus on the inventory channels there. So even now at pre-COVID levels, it's 98,000. The builders manage everything right. Why do they manage, Sarah?
Because they're not the March of Dimes.
They are not the March of Dimes. They are here to make money, shareholders' money. Okay, so they can buy down rates, they do everything. Their profit margins allow that to happen. Smaller builders, not so much, right? They're at a disadvantage. So we're in this really interesting period of time where new home sales aren't really exploding higher and they're not really crashing. So how long does this game last on how long the labor picks up? So we always keep an eye on permits. And now for the first time, permits are falling, single family and multifamilies at lows. Back in 2022, single family permits had a waterfall dive, but multifamily permits were starting to rise. So the backlog has kept this cycle very unique. Same thing with in manufacturing. Usually manufacturing jobs get lost, going into a recession, but we have so much manufacturing construction spending going on that it hides kind of the business investment cycle in that. So we're in a very, very unique cycle in that light, and we'll see how this goes. But it's something to keep an eye on going out in the future. And in that article, I really wanted to showcase everyone, what does it look like when we actually have a recession? Why November 9th, 2022 was key. And now we have to focus on this again if the permits continue going lower.
So one of the things I like about the way that you do the builder's report, right, on the new home sales is you break out, you don't just go, okay, this is how many, 9.1 months of supply. You break it out into here. Some part of that supply is, yes, ready to build, go out, buy it today. Some part is under construction and some part they haven't even started yet, because that shows us what the backlog is and what the effect is going to be.
So one of the things I realized I didn't do in the last decade, and this was my fault, I assumed people knew this, so I never ever talked about it, that the monthly supply for new homes, what was the Fight Club rules we have, Sarah? We never, ever compare the new home sales
Right.
inventory market or monthly supply market to the existing homes. This
We
is
don't get
like
them
it's
mixed up and talk about them like they're the
yeah,
same.
because I literally for years, especially post 2020, people see the monthly supply for new homes at like 8 months and they think that's active inventory. And it's just like they kept on saying, oh, look, there's no housing shortage. There's no, while home prices are escalating out of control. Look, there's, I was like, oh my God. And I realized what happened is Fred, the chart that they use, never made it clear that it was the new home sales market. And they don't make it clear that a lot of that supply is actually homes that are active. That's the way it works. So in those articles, we want to highlight that majority of the monthly supply data are not actually homes ready, right? And to my fault, this is me assuming. I assumed people knew that, and they didn't. So I keep on having to harping this now because I got to get this across that the majority of the monthly supply are homes that are either in construction or haven't even started yet. Now the homes haven't started yet is like 101,000. That's actually near all-time highs. So it's an accelerated monthly supply data curve that's running off homes that are actually under construction or not construction. So the monthly supply data is not what it seems like the previous cycle. Which the funny part is that the census data redid their new home prices. So these trolling Twitter accounts kept on showing the HUD data as home prices declining. They kept on saying existing home prices are, you people cannot read. And now they revised the data lines and it doesn't look like bad at all. So I was like, hell yeah, everyone, can we have, I don't follow these people, but I want to see them try to talk their way out of it. Right. So it's confusing, but that's why we have those Fight Club rules. We don't compare this to the existing home sales. These are complete. This is the Godzilla of home sales and active inventory and everything. This is like a little tiny coffee shop. Right. Okay. So it just doesn't have the velocity. And remember, completed units of sale, 98,000, 2 weeks of new listings data right now. Last week and this week will override that. Okay. That's why we don't like to compare this. But for construction workers, it does matter, right? For the labor market, it does matter. For jobless claims, it does matter. Jobless claims went lower again. Right. So it's just one of these things that we want to focus on. But I still see some people trying to mix up the data lines, and that's not right. That's not efficient. And I feel partly responsible that I didn't do this in the last decade, but now I'm nailing this down. Hammer. There we go.
It is all your fault. You should definitely take all of the blame for that.
Bread and water for 2 weeks.
Okay, so I think one of the things that we always talk about when I'm editing your stories, I'm like, okay, why does someone care about this? Right. And so
by the way, you editing my stories, it's funny, talk to me like I'm 5. Talk to me like I'm 5. Why do I care? Why do And I was
because there's a top line that, of course, if people are looking for economic news, they care about it just from the economic standpoint. Then there's a lot of our readers who are like, they're running a business, they're in, origination, or they're in real estate. And it's like, they need to know, why do I care about this? And the reason that you said yesterday and that you just reiterated is that we care about it just for itself. Like, okay, how many new home sales are out there? But also like looking at that backlog number, we can see how long it's going to be before those construction workers start to lose their jobs, which means the Fed might pivot, which means lower mortgage rates. That's why a lot of people care about this.
Right. Labor market breaks, rates go lower. When rates go lower, demand picks up. Everybody who's in the mortgage or real estate industry will get more business.
That's right.
Just because we're working from record low sales.
And that is what we had this conversation yesterday when I was like, okay, I understand what you're saying. Why do people care? That's what we need to talk about.
Well, if you read the next 3 sentences, it kind of goes in there. So that's you always go, it's not here. I was like, just move down a little bit more, then you get to see it. So
it's true. No, it's a good report though. I would tell everyone to go read it, as well as our weekly tracker, which goes into, of course, the existing home sales. And we have weekly data, so we know exactly what's going on across the country.
Yeah, and it's the new listings data doesn't look like I'm going to get what I want this year. And I got to say, I really, really thought we could get at least 80,000 this year. And for everybody that follows the tracker article, the new listings data, like if you could get to 95 to 110,000, we're kind of at the pre-COVID level normal highs. But if we could get at least to the 80,000 mark, I feel much better about the marketplace. We kind of had that in 2022, where we actually touched 90,000 at the seasonal peak. And I'm afraid that new listings data has been falling for 3 weeks in a row. That's what we talked about last year. It's Memorial Day weekend, so we're going to see the Memorial Day weekend dive in new listings, and then it's going to rebound. But if the seasonal curve comes out, then the new listings data is not. It's not gonna be able to reaccelerate unless you have some exogenous shock. And even with the exogenous shocks that we had during COVID, even with 8% mortgage rates, so the data line did the opposite. So I think I'm going to have to admit that I'm going to take an L on this one. We got, I think, 74,000. We quite didn't get to 80, but something we'll track on for the second half of the year. Because, one of the things that I would tell you this, one of the things I see incorrect out there, and I had this discussion earlier today, is that people look at like median incomes of data, and they don't realize that we have 158 million people working. When you have 158 million people working, you have dual household incomes, that whatever median or household incomes you're using is somewhat irrelevant to the scale of the home sales demand curve. And if I had to teach people, I'm going to speak at a college.
Oh, you are? Yes, we're going to have to start.
You see, this is my Professor Logan outfit. This is why I wore this. So you can see I got the glasses. Do I look like a professor?
You do. You've got the turtleneck. You absolutely look like a professor. Yep.
Oh, yeah. This is like my Professor Dr. Jones, I'll be talking about archaeology events. No, I'll be talking economics. But one of the things I always try to stress to people is, okay, I need you all to explain me, why do we have 5 million total home sales if affordability is so bad? And then everyone highlights the median income. Okay, then tell me, why do we have 5 million total home sales? You don't hear anything because they don't look at it in that way. So what you have to do is you have to workforce, the demographics, and realize that if home sales actually penetrated through the 4 million mark and started to head down to 3 million, that is an affordability metric that I actually think, oh my God, we are really getting crushed here. But affordability was worse in the early 1980s. And when rates started to tick down back then, existing home sales went from 2 million to 4 million, 4 million to 2 million. Here, we went from, got from 6.5 million down to 4, but we see bounces, right? We see whenever rates fall 1%, we see bounces. That's just, we haven't even broken under 6% yet, really. The builders can do that. So I would argue that a lot of people do not input the dual household income variable. You're taking a single household income. A lot of you people are taking like young renter incomes and trying to input them into home price data. No. Once you equate, very, very simple way, this person makes 90,000, this person makes 80,000. Okay, do the math. If you're saying that you need 100 or 110,000 to buy a house, that's 170. So 158 million people, 4 million existing home sales. We've held it. We held it with 6%, 7%, 8% mortgage rates, home prices escalating out of control. So that buyer is still there. Millennials are now still the number one home buyers. So there's a level to where you need to see sales keep on crashing. But if home sales are here, and if you didn't know home sales crashed from 6.5 to 4 million, and you stayed at 4 million, do you look at economics differently? You should, because you're just working with the supply and demand equilibrium right now. So rates fall, demand picks up. This is why labor cycle matters, right? We've seen this in the data line twice. I'm not even taking a 5% mortgage rate or anything. I'm just thinking, boy, it looks like if we get to 6, we could bounce sales and hold them. And even our pending contracts data is showing positive year-over-year growth. Not by a lot. I wrote that article in March saying, did we already hit the peak of sales? Because the growth that we saw came with lower mortgage rates. It was only for 8 weeks, which is, to me, is not materially enough, but it bounced sales 500,000 again. So we keep an eye on that, but be careful of trying to use a median income. You have to distribute the sales and the demographics and the workforce and labor market, or else your sales should go to zero, right? So you shouldn't use that as a model for yourself.
Good advice. I can't believe we are out of time already. That was really.
Oh, Sarah, it's because I ranted about the hedge funds out there, so I took that out. But listen, everyone, I encourage, reading is a good thing. I'm telling you this
Reading is a good thing.
As somebody who studied history. The history of human civilizations has always expressed to us that those that read, right, and try not to lie about stuff, have such an advantage over those that do lie, not read. So just be careful of politicians out there. Be careful of YouTube. Be careful. Follow the data. Numbers are what, Sarah? What are numbers?
You say they're the closest thing to the
They are
handwriting.
numbers are the closest thing to the handwriting of God.
That's what you
Right?
say, yes. All
So
right,
I
well,
just go with that.
Professor Logan, thank you for schooling us all today. Thank you for telling us what we need to know. Appreciate the turtleneck. We'll keep that going. But really have a great Memorial Day weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, Sarah.